My name is Kathy Marshall, and I was 28 years old when my father cornered me in my workplace parking lot and beat me because I refused to let my younger brother move into my apartment. That sentence still doesn't feel real when I read it back. But before fists, before police reports, before restraining orders, there was a lifetime of quieter damage that led directly to that moment. I grew up in a family where love was conditional effort, was expected from only one child, and accountability somehow always skipped the same person. That person wasn't me. My younger brother Noah is 3 years younger than I am. He was the golden child from the moment he was born. The kind of favoritism so blatant, it didn't even bother pretending to be subtle. If I struggled, it was character building. If Noah struggled, it was everyone else's fault. From as early as I can remember, I was the responsible one, the reliable one, the child who didn't need help because I learned very quickly that needing help meant being ignored. I got my first job at 15 bussing tables at a local diner. Not because my parents encouraged independence, but because if I wanted money for clothes, movies, or anything beyond bare necessities, I had to earn it myself. Meanwhile, Noah spent his teenage years gaming until early morning hours, leaving dirty dishes and laundry piled in his room, until our mother cleaned it up while telling me I needed to be more understanding of his creative personality. That phrase, creative personality, still makes my jaw clench. When I was 12 and Noah was 9, we both asked for bikes for our birthdays. I got a used one from a garage sale. Noah got a brand new mountain bike that cost hundreds of dollars. When I asked why there was such a difference, my mother told me I should be grateful I got anything at all. Grateful for leftovers. High school made everything worse. I had a strict midnight curfew. Weekdays. Weekends. Didn't matter. If I broke it even by 20 minutes, I was grounded for weeks. Noah. No curfew. He'd roll in at 3 in the morning on a school night, and no one said a word. When I was 16, I saved $800 to buy a used Honda Civic. Paid for it myself. Paid for my own insurance, too. Noah turned 16, and my parents bought him a nearly new Nissan as a birthday gift. When I asked why I had to pay my way, while he didn't, my father said, "You were already saving money anyway. This just made things easier for everyone." Everyone except me. Academically, the double standard was brutal. I got grounded for a week for getting a B+ in chemistry. My father lectured me about wasted potential. Noah failed 3 classes his senior year. 3. My parents hired him a private tutor twice a week and blamed the teachers for not engaging him enough. And somehow, no matter how unfair it got, I kept telling myself that if I just worked harder, stayed quieter, caused less trouble, eventually they'd see me. They never did. By the time I left for community college, I'd already learned the lesson that would define my adulthood. If I wanted stability, I had to build it myself. No safety net, no grace, no second chances. I didn't know then that one day that same independence would make me the family villain, and that refusing to keep carrying my brother would cost me far more than their approval. By the time I turned 19, the rules of our household had shifted again, only this time they were rewritten explicitly for my benefit, or rather my burden. That was the year my parents decided I needed to start paying rent. $600 a month. Their logic was simple and delivered with the kind of authority that left no room for argument. I was legally an adult now. Adults contribute. Adults learn responsibility. Adults don't get handouts. I remember standing in the kitchen when my father told me, nodding slowly, forcing myself to swallow the familiar knot in my throat. Fine. I could make it work. I was already working full-time while taking community college classes. I'd adjust my budget, pick up extra shifts if I had to. Responsibility was something I'd been practicing my entire life anyway. What I wasn't prepared for was the hypocrisy. 2 years later, when Noah turned 19, nothing changed for him. No rent, no contribution, no expectations. He continued living at home exactly as he always had, gaming, drifting between part-time jobs, quitting the moment anything became inconvenient. When I finally brought it up, my father didn't even look embarrassed. "Every kid is different," he said. "Noah isn't ready for that kind of pressure yet." Pressure. I paid rent for 3 straight years while living at home and attending school. By the time I moved out, I'd given my parents $21,600 money that could have gone toward my future, my savings, or even just a small cushion of security. Noah, meanwhile, lived rent-free for 25 years. I worked 50-hour weeks while taking classes. I paid for every credit hour myself. I transferred to a state university after 2 years and graduated with a degree in accounting debt-free because I refused to borrow what I couldn't afford to repay. Graduation day should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow. My parents arrived late and sat in the back. Other families had balloons, signs, cheers. Mine brought nothing. At dinner afterward, my father barely looked up from his phone. No one asked about my job prospects or plans. The conversation pivoted almost immediately to Noah, his future, his potential, his struggles. My graduation gift was a $75 Amazon gift card handed to me in a drugstore card with the activation receipt still tucked inside. No note, no message, just their signatures. I smiled and thanked them anyway. Noah enrolled in college the following year. He failed out after 3 semesters. Tuition, room board, spending money, my parents paid every cent, over $35,000. When he quit, they told him it was okay, that he was brave for trying, that they'd support whatever he decided to do next. I'd paid for everything myself and graduated with honors. He burned through tens of thousands of dollars and got sympathy. That was the moment something in me finally went quiet. Not anger, not jealousy. Acceptance. I stopped expecting fairness, stopped hoping they'd wake up and see what they were doing. I focused on work instead. I landed a junior accountant position at a mid-size firm. The pay wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. I lived with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment, saved aggressively, and said no to anything that didn't serve my long-term goal. No vacations, no splurges, no distractions. I wanted one thing, a place of my own, somewhere their dysfunction couldn't reach me. And after 2 years of grinding, I finally got it. A modest 1-bedroom apartment in a decent area. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. When I signed the lease and moved in with barely any furniture, I felt lighter than I ever had in my life. The first night I ordered pizza, sat on my cheap couch in an empty living room, and listened to the silence. No shouting, no comparisons, no disappointment. Just peace. I didn't know yet how temporary that peace would be, because entitlement doesn't respect boundaries. And Noah had never been told no in his life. After I moved into my apartment, I did something radical. I stopped explaining myself. I still showed up for major holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the occasional birthday, but I stopped attending every random family dinner, every last-minute gathering that always seemed to revolve around Noah's latest crisis. I stopped answering calls that came with expectations attached. I didn't announce it. I didn't make a speech. I just quietly reclaimed my time. My parents noticed immediately. They said I'd changed, that moving out had made me distant, that I thought I was better than them now. I didn't argue because arguing would have meant caring enough to convince them otherwise. And honestly, my mental health improved almost overnight. Without the constant comparisons, without the background noise of disappointment and obligation, I started to breathe differently. I slept better. I stopped clenching my jaw all the time. I stopped replaying old conversations in my head, wondering what I could have done differently to earn the same grace my brother received effortlessly. Work helped. I threw myself into it the same way I'd thrown myself into everything else that had ever mattered. Over the next 3 years, I earned 2 raises. My boss trusted me with bigger accounts. He mentioned I was on track for a promotion if I kept it up. It wasn't flashy success, it was steady, earned, mine. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. I thought I'd finally found a rhythm that couldn't be disrupted. I was wrong. 4 months ago, on a random Tuesday night, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it without checking the peephole, already halfway through a sentence about wrong apartments when I saw him standing there. Noah. 2 duffel bags at his feet, a cardboard box under his arm containing his gaming PC. No call, no text, no warning. Just entitlement. Hey, Elle, he said casually, already stepping forward like the conversation had already been decided. Can I crash here for a bit? I blocked the doorway before he could cross the threshold. What I said, no, what are you talking about? Apparently, our parents had finally reached their limit. After 25 years of rent-free living, endless chances, and zero accountability, my father had given Noah an ultimatum, pay $400 a month or move out. Noah did neither. He assumed, as he always had, that the rules didn't really apply to him. So when they kicked him out that morning, his solution wasn't to find a roommate or a job or even a cheap sublet. It was me. Come on, he said, shifting his bags like they were already inside. It'll just be temporary. Like old times. Old times. I stared at him, stunned by how easily he could rewrite history. Our childhood hadn't been bonding. It had been me carrying weight while he floated above consequences. No, I said flatly, you're not staying here. His expression shifted fast friendly to confused to irritated in seconds. Are you serious right now? I'm your brother. And this is my apartment, I replied. That I worked my tail off for. You're not moving in. He tried everything. Promises, assurances, deals. He'd get a job. He'd help with chores. He'd be quiet. I wouldn't even notice he was there. Every word sounded exactly like every promise he'd ever broken. Noah, I said finally, you need to figure this out yourself. I'm not your backup plan. So you're just going to let me be homeless, he snapped. You're not homeless, I said. You have options. You're 25 years old. Figure it out. He stood there for a long moment waiting for me to cave. I didn't. He grabbed his bags and left without another word. I locked the door behind him and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. I should have known that peace never goes unchallenged in families like mine, because the next morning my phone exploded. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone felt heavier than usual. I didn't even have to unlock it to know what was waiting for me. Missed calls, voicemails, notifications stacked on top of each other like accusations. My mother had called 3 times before 8 a.m., my father twice, Noah once, then my mother again. I let all of it go to voicemail and got ready for work in silence, the kind of silence that feels loaded instead of peaceful. I already knew what they were going to say. I'd heard variations of it my entire life. Family helps family. How could you do this to your brother? We didn't raise you this way. On my drive to work, I finally listened to the messages. My mother cried in the first one, actual sobbing like I'd done something unforgivable. In the second, her voice hardened, disappointed and sharp, accusing me of abandoning my brother when he needed me most. In the third, she went quiet and cold, telling me she expected better from me. My father's messages were shorter. Call me back immediately. We need to talk about Noah. Noah's message was last. He sounded angry now, not desperate. He called me selfish, said he'd remember this, said he couldn't believe I'd turned my back on my own brother. I didn't call any of them back. I put my phone on silent and went to work. That night, the messages kept coming. My mother escalated from guilt to outrage. My father leaned on authority, reminding me of everything they'd done for me. Noah's texts swung wildly between begging and blame. Around 2:00 a.m., Noah called 11 times in a row. The voicemail he left was almost impressive in its manipulation. He talked about how he'd always looked up to me, how he couldn't believe I'd do this, how he didn't know where else to go. We had never been close. Not once had he ever stood up for me. Not when I paid rent, not when I got punished, not when I was overlooked. But suddenly I was supposed to save him. By the end of the week, the extended family got involved. My aunt texted me saying she couldn't believe I'd turned my back on Noah. My grandmother sent a message telling me she was praying for me because I'd clearly lost my way. Cousins I barely spoke to chimed in with opinions they hadn't earned. Here's the thing that made it all feel surreal. Not a single one of them offered to let Noah stay with them. My aunt had a spare bedroom. My grandmother had a basement apartment. But somehow the responsibility landed squarely on me, the one who had escaped, the one who had something to lose. One evening, I got home from work and noticed 2 familiar shapes through my peephole. My aunt and my mother, standing in my hallway. My heart started pounding, but I didn't open the door. They knocked for a full 5 minutes, soft at first, then louder, then urgent. "Sweetheart," my aunt called through the door. "We just want to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. "Noah needs to find his own place. Please leave." They didn't. They stayed there another 10 minutes, whispering to each other, knocking occasionally like persistence might magically change my mind. I put on headphones and let them waste their time. That night I sent one group text. Noah is 25. He can get a job and find his own place like every other adult. I'm not discussing this further. Then I muted the chat. The response was immediate and explosive. My phone buzzed nonstop for over an hour. I didn't read most of it. One message from my mother did catch my eye before I locked the screen. "You've changed. Your apartment and your job have made you cold." The irony almost made me laugh. I hadn't changed. I'd just stopped accepting unequal treatment, and apparently that made me dangerous. For about 2 weeks after that, everything went quiet. I thought maybe they'd finally accepted my answer. I thought wrong. Because one Thursday evening as I was leaving work, I saw my father's truck parked next to my car. And I knew before he even spoke that this was about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. It was just after 6:00 p.m. when I walked out of my office building. I remember checking the time because I'd had a long day and was already mentally planning dinner. Something easy, maybe pasta, maybe just cereal if I was too tired to care. I was halfway across the parking lot when I saw the truck. My father's truck, parked right next to my car. He was leaning against the driver's door with his arms crossed, staring straight at me like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. My stomach dropped so hard, it felt like I'd missed a step on a staircase. This wasn't coincidence. He'd come here on purpose. For a split second, I considered turning around and going back inside, pretending I hadn't seen him. But that instinct, avoid, comply, don't escalate, was an old reflex I'd spent years unlearning. I was 28 years old. I kept walking. We need to talk, he said as I approached. I'm heading home, I replied, stopping a few feet away. If you want to talk, you can call me. I've been calling you. And I haven't answered, I said. Because there's nothing to discuss. I already gave you my answer about Noah. His jaw tightened. Get in my truck. No. That single word felt heavier than it should have. I stepped toward my car, but he moved in front of me, blocking my path. The lot was mostly empty, just a few scattered cars, no one close enough to hear us. You're going to listen to me, he said, his voice low. Nathan Noah is not moving in with me, I said evenly. This isn't a request. He laughed sharp and humorless. You think you're so much better than the rest of us now, don't you? He said. Fancy apartment, accounting job, acting like you're too good to help your own family. This isn't about being better, I said. It's about boundaries. Boundaries. He scoffed. How about the boundary of not abandoning your brother? He doesn't need help, I replied. He needs consequences. I saw it in his eyes the second the words left my mouth. The shift. The moment the conversation stopped being verbal. You ungrateful little. He stepped closer. After everything we did for you, fed you, housed you, paid for your school. I paid for my own school, I shot back. And you charged me rent while Noah lived for free. That's because Noah needed support, he snapped. You were always fine on your own. So I get punished for being responsible. You're being asked to help family, he said. And you're too selfish to understand that. I'm done with this conversation, I said, trying to move past him. He grabbed my arm. Hard. Let go of me, I said. Not until you agree. I yanked my arm back. He grabbed my shirt, pulling me toward him. You will do as I say, he hissed, or you're dead to this family. Before I could respond, he shoved me. I stumbled backward, barely keeping my balance. This isn't happening, I thought. This can't be happening. My own father. In my work parking lot. Then he hit me. I didn't even see it coming. The punch caught the side of my face near my ear, exploding into pain and sound all at once. I went down hard, my glasses flying off across the asphalt. I tasted blood. Before I could process it, he was over me. Get up, he said. I couldn't. He grabbed my collar, hauled me halfway up, then shoved me back down. My hands scraped against the pavement. You think you can disrespect this family, he shouted. Then he kicked me in the ribs. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough that the message was clear. I curled instinctively, trying to protect myself. You're going to help your brother, he said, or you're nothing to us. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. He stepped back. His posture shifted. The rage cooled into justification. Noah needs this, he said. Stop being stubborn. Do the right thing. And then he walked back to his truck and drove away, leaving me bleeding on the ground. Lying there, staring up at the darkening sky, something inside me finally broke loose. Not fear. Not sadness. Clarity. Because if I let this go, if I stayed quiet, this would never stop. So I pulled out my phone, and I called the police. My hands were shaking when the operator answered. I need to report an assault, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. My father just attacked me in my workplace parking lot. Saying it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had yet. I gave my location, my name, my father's name, his truck, his license plate, every detail I could remember. The operator asked if I needed an ambulance. I said no, I was hurt, but I was conscious, breathing, able to move. What I needed was for this to be documented, for it to stop being something that could be rewritten later. 2 police cars arrived within 10 minutes. By then, I'd managed to sit up my back against my car, my head pounding. One officer crouched in front of me, calm and professional, while the others scanned the area. They asked me what happened, and I told them everything, from refusing to let my brother move in to my father waiting for me to the threats to the punches. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't soften it either. One officer took photos of my face, my scraped hands, the rip in my shirt. The swelling along my jaw was already visible. They asked if there were security cameras. There were. My office building had full coverage of the parking lot. Do you want to press charges? One of them asked. Yes, I said immediately. I want to press full charges. They exchanged a brief look, not surprised exactly, but aware. Family assault cases often ended with people backing down, trying to keep things private, pretending nothing had happened. I wasn't doing that. They told me they would be contacting my father and that he would likely be arrested. They asked if I felt safe going home. I told them yes, he didn't know my address. I'd never given it to him after moving. After they left, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the dashboard. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I replayed the moment he hit me again and again like my brain was trying to make sense of it. Then I called workplace security and explained what happened. They told me they'd preserve the parking lot footage and provide it to the police. From there, I drove myself to urgent care. The doctor documented everything: facial contusion, rib bruising, abrasions on my hands, photographs, notes, medical records, proof. By the time I got home, it was nearly 11:10 p.m. I was exhausted, in pain, emotionally numb. But underneath all of that, there was something unexpected: relief. For years, I'd been the family punching bag in every way that didn't leave bruises. Tonight, it had turned physical, and instead of shrinking, I'd finally stood my ground. I texted my boss to explain I'd been involved in an incident and would need the next day off. He called immediately concerned. I gave him the basics: family dispute, police involved, medical documentation. He told me to take whatever time I needed and that HR would be notified since it happened on company property. Then I turned my phone off and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and more text messages than I bothered to count. I didn't read them. I made coffee, took pain medication, sat at my kitchen table, and waited. Around 10:00 a.m., there was a knock at my door. 2 police officers stood outside. They told me my father had been arrested that morning, charged with assault and battery, taken into custody. The arrest hadn't gone smoothly. He'd tried to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that I was being dramatic, that families fight. My mother had been there, screaming at the officers, insisting they were destroying the family over nothing. The officers asked if I wanted a restraining order. Yes, I said. They helped me file it on the spot. A temporary order was issued immediately. My father was required to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. That's when my phone truly exploded. My mother called 15 times in a row. My aunt, my grandmother, my brother, cousins I barely spoke to. I finally answered my mother. She was hysterical. "How could you do this?" she screamed. "You had your father arrested. Do you have any idea what this will do to him?" "He assaulted me," I said calmly, "in a parking lot, because I wouldn't let Noah move in." "It wasn't that serious," she snapped. "You're blowing this out of proportion." He punched me in the face and kicked me while I was on the ground. There was a pause. "You must have provoked him," she said. "Your father wouldn't just do that for no reason." And there it was. Even bruised and bleeding, I was still the problem. "If you go through with this," she said, her voice turning icy, "you are not my daughter anymore. You will be dead to this family." "Okay," I said. And I hung up. Then I blocked her number. I blocked my father, my brother, my aunt, anyone who tried to defend what he'd done. The peace was immediate, but the fallout was just beginning. The silence after I blocked them all felt unreal. For the first time since I was a child, there was no one demanding explanations, no one telling me I was selfish, no one rewriting reality in real time to protect Noah and my father at my expense. It was quiet in a way that felt earned, like the aftermath of a storm that had finally burned itself out. That quiet didn't last long. I learned what was happening through a handful of neutral cousins who hadn't joined the harassment campaign and still had a line of communication open. According to them, my family was in full meltdown mode. My father was released on bail, but officially charged with assault and battery. The restraining order meant he couldn't come near me, my home, or my workplace, and more importantly, he couldn't attend family gatherings if I was present. My mother was telling anyone who would listen that I'd destroyed the family over nothing, that I'd exaggerated, that I'd betrayed them. Noah had moved in with my aunt. That part almost made me laugh. Apparently, she'd started charging him rent $300 a month and expected him to help with chores. Within days, he was already complaining about how unfair it was, about how she was too strict, about how no one understood him. The same story, different house. My grandmother tried to organize what she called an intervention. She left a voicemail on my work phone, which I'd forgotten to block, telling me how disappointed she was, how I was tearing the family apart, and how I needed to drop the charges immediately and let bygones be bygones. Let bygones be bygones. As if my father's fists were a minor disagreement. As if being beaten in a parking lot was something polite people simply move past. I saved the voicemail and added it to the growing folder of documentation I'd started keeping. Because by then, I understood something my family clearly didn't. This was no longer about Noah's housing situation. This was about power. If I dropped the charges, the message would be clear. They could hurt me physically, emotionally, publicly, and I would still be expected to forgive, comply, and absorb it quietly. I wasn't doing that anymore. The legal process moved faster than I expected. My father hired a lawyer who tried to frame everything as a family disagreement that had gotten out of hand. My lawyer responded with evidence: parking lot security footage, medical records, police reports, a statement from a coworker who had seen part of the incident through an office window. The footage was damning. Crystal clear video of my father grabbing me, shoving me, punching me, kicking me while I was down. No context could explain that away. As the case progressed, my family escalated. Since I'd blocked most of them, they got creative. My mother mailed an 8-page handwritten letter to my apartment detailing every way I'd supposedly destroyed the family. Not once did she acknowledge that my father had beaten me. My aunt somehow got my workplace number and called asking to speak with me. When the receptionist said I wasn't available, she launched into a speech about family loyalty. HR had to send out a memo reminding staff not to give out employee information. One cousin showed up in my office building lobby and tried to corner me on my way to the elevator. I didn't stop walking. Building security escorted her out. Every attempt to guilt me only reinforced that I was doing the right thing. About 3 weeks in, my father's lawyer offered a plea deal. If I dropped the charges, my father would plead to a lesser offense, do community service, attend anger management, and keep the restraining order for 1 year. I didn't hesitate. No, I told my lawyer. He can plead guilty to assault and battery, or we go to trial. When my family found out I'd refused the deal, they lost their minds. My mother left a message with my lawyer's office begging me to reconsider. My grandmother sent a registered letter filled with Bible verses about forgiveness. My aunt showed up at my apartment again, this time with Noah. I watched them through the peephole for 20 minutes before calling building security and having them removed. The trial happened quickly after that. 2 days. That's all it took. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When the verdict came back guilty on all counts, I felt something settle inside me. Not triumph, not joy. Finality. My father was sentenced to 6 months in county jail with the possibility of work release, 2 years of probation, mandatory anger management, and an extension of the restraining order to 5 years. The assault conviction would stay on his record permanently. I wasn't allowed in the courtroom because of the restraining order, but my lawyer called me immediately after sentencing. I sat in my apartment in the space I'd built for myself from nothing and listened. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel small. The fallout didn't slow down after the verdict. If anything, it detonated. My mother went public. She posted a long, rambling message on social media about how I had destroyed our family over pride and selfishness, how I had sent my own father to jail over a minor disagreement, how she was ashamed to call me her daughter. Relatives flooded the comments, agreeing with her. I screenshot everything and saved it to my folder, then closed the app without responding to a single word. Silence had become my sharpest boundary. Noah tried one last time, not directly through a mutual acquaintance, who sent me a message saying he'd moved in with our aunt, gotten a warehouse job, and was trying to get his life together. The message ended with, "I hope you're happy." I blocked the messenger without replying. 2 months later, I heard through one of the neutral cousins that my father had lost his job. The assault conviction meant he couldn't pass the background check for his security clearance renewal. My mother had picked up extra shifts to cover their mortgage. Noah had been fired from the warehouse after 3 weeks for chronic lateness and was back to living rent-free with my aunt, who was apparently at her breaking point. 3 months after the trial, my aunt left a voicemail on my work phone, the one number she still had. She said Noah had overstayed his welcome, that she couldn't support him anymore, that she was just asking if I'd reconsider. I deleted the voicemail before it finished. 4 months after the trial, I got promoted to senior accountant. 20% raise. My own office. My boss pulled me aside and told me the company appreciated my professionalism during such a difficult personal situation that I'd handled it with maturity and restraint. Around that same time, I met Ethan at a work conference. He was easy to talk to, observant, calm in a way that didn't demand anything from me. On our 3rd date, I told him the truth about my family, the assault, the trial. I waited for the inevitable, but they're still your family. It never came. Good, he said instead. Anyone who defends violence doesn't deserve access to you. We've been together 6 months now. He's never once suggested reconciliation, never questioned my boundaries. He just respects them. 6 months after sentencing, my grandmother passed away. Natural causes. I found out through Facebook. I didn't go to the funeral. My mother posted again about family members who chose not to honor her memory. People commented shocked that someone would skip their own grandmother's service. I sent flowers with a simple card, "Sorry for your loss." That was it. 8 months and Noah was arrested for driving on a suspended license. He'd ignored unpaid tickets for months and kept driving anyway. My aunt bailed him out and kicked him out the next day. He moved back in with my parents. According to my cousin, nothing had changed. My father angry and unemployed, my mother exhausted Noah gaming all day, like time meant nothing. About a year after the assault, my father sent me a letter through my lawyer. 3 pages of explanations. Stress, frustration, things getting out of hand, anger management classes completed, hopes of reconciliation. Not once did he say I was wrong to hit you. I filed the letter away and never responded. Last month I bought a house. A small 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood 30 minutes from my office. Ethan helped me pick it out. We're not rushing anything. He has his own place, but he has a key and stays over most weekends. The day I closed, I sat on the back deck with a drink, looking at the yard, feeling something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Contentment. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. It was Noah. He apologized. For everything. For showing up at my apartment. For never standing up for me. For the family falling apart. He said he was finally working, paying his own rent, trying to be responsible. Good for you, I said. That's what you should have been doing all along. He asked if we could talk. Coffee. Closure. No, I said. There was a long silence on the line. Family's supposed to forgive, he said quietly. Family's not supposed to assault each other, I replied. We're both dealing with disappointment. I hung up, blocked the number, went back to my deck. I didn't lose my family. I lost a system that thrived on my silence. And I built something better in its place.